Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Let's give it a few minutes before we start this class. And towards the end of this class, we have Beanthoven, who will spend some time and maybe, do some live performance. Okay, how are you, Publius? I'm not sure if you're talking, but you're muted.
Doing well, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing well here. Okay. To our audience, feel free at any point to drop your questions in the town hall chat or raise your hand, and you can join us on stage and ask it directly. Publius, maybe I can start this class by talking a little bit about the current market and how the protocol or Beanstalk is behaving in it. And I will mimic a lot of maybe the protocol's behavior to, let's say, earlier this year, maybe towards maybe actually a year from then. So like December all the way up to April, or just before the exploit. So Bean right now is at 96 or 97 cents, let's say, and the temperature is at around 5,000 and it's increasing. On the margin, does it really matter what the temperature is? I mean, to an extent, but does it matter if it's like 5,000, 10,000, 20,000? Given that, or as long as the amount of soil that is issued is controlled. At the end of the day, whatever the temperature is, there is only a limited amount of soil that ends up being sold, and then the protocol isn't really like just like selling soil or issuing soil at a very high interest rate. Does that make sense? And maybe we saw that, like if you look historically into the pod graph and how it increases, and we'll see that after the BIP that had a cap on the amount of soil issued, let's say, or stop the amount of soil that used to be issued unnecessarily, you will find that Beanstalk doesn't really take a lot of that, even when the temperature is high or considerably higher than what it used to be before.
Well, first off, there's, I'm sure, a class that people can find in the early days of class where we speculated that Beanstalk probably couldn't handle something like a 3,000% weather, if I recall correctly. So, what do we know? Beanstalk has had a 5, 6, I think even 7,000% weather in its past. And to your point, Mod, due to the refinement in the soil issuance, it doesn't seem like there is a significant risk to Beanstalk in terms of pod issuance at a given temperature. But I think that there's certainly there is some theoretical limit at which the temperature is too high and the cost for Beanstalk to attract lenders is too high, whether that's 10,000, 20,000, 100,000, who knows? But separately, the Sunrise improvement with the Dutch auction that Breen has been working on, which is currently under audit, should also be another probably order of magnitude improvement in the soil issuance mechanism, in this case when the price is above peg. But in particular, when Beanstalk is recovering from high temperatures, it probably will at the margin make a difference. Now, there's an argument to be made that, and we would probably support this argument, that the temperature should be downward reflexive, meaning even if it's slow to move upward, like in these cases that we're experiencing right now, where there's a slow bleed, if you will, Beanstalk isn't in a rush to raise the temperature to attract lenders, in particular because there may be no lenders at any price right now, and therefore it's not in Beanstalk's best interest to have the temperature increase to infinity quickly. But once Beanstalk repegs, there is an argument to be made that the temperature should decrease much faster than it increases. And in particular, the potential for the temperature to decrease faster than it increases also probably improves the incentive structure around lending to Beanstalk efficiently, because not only will you be further back in line, the temperature may go down very quickly after people start to lend to Beanstalk and the price is above $1 or whatever it's pegged to, and therefore it probably makes the incentives around an efficient soil market even stronger. So that's maybe the next efficiency to be made in the field, where the soil is downward reflexive in some capacity. But to go back to your original question, Mod, it's unclear what those circumstances would actually be, although they certainly exist in theory and in practice. But maybe the more interesting, or not more interesting, but another interesting lens with which to think about what's going on here is that beans have effectively depegged, where the price is at 96 cents and change, but it doesn't seem like, at least in the immediate future, that there's a run on the bank happening. Now, to some extent, there's an argument that a lot of the capital, there's an argument to be made that a lot of the capital is locked up, and therefore there's a limit to the potential for a run on the bank, which is true. But nonetheless, the bigger point stands that the general incentive structures implemented by Beanstalk do tend to be counter-reflexive, and that's generally encouraging. That even though you probably do expect more downside reflexivity in general when you have depegs, it's certainly nice to see depegs where there's sort of a slow, steady burn. I think burn is a good word in this case, where the delta B is growing slowly and the temperature is rising, which is what you originally were asking about. And so there is some, can this go on for years? Probably not. Can this go on for months? Probably. And therefore, there is time to implement the downward reflexivity in the soil, so that even if it gets up to some crazy amount, it is probably possible to get it quickly back down in some autonomous fashion. And in general, as the system goes through more cycles, we're going to continue to collectively get a lot of data points for where are the rough spots in the peg maintenance model. And at the moment, feel like the temperature rising to a very high amount, on the one hand, it makes sense economically, and it's not reasonable to expect that the only demand for beans will come from repegging from the silo. In fact, it's probably unreasonable to think that it is necessary for Beanstalk to attract lenders. But there is a question as to how much should Beanstalk be willing to pay in the field in order to repeg, and maybe even if the temperature is, there's some maximum temperature, maybe there's not, that temperature isn't available for all of the soil. So if the delta B gets down to negative X and the temperature is Y, instead of getting the full temperature, so Y plus 1 times X for whatever the soil is to fully repeg, there could be some temperature over which the excuse me, there could be some curve over which the temperature is discounted, and sort of like an order book of temperature that Beanstalk could implement. So there's some maximum increase in the pod rate as a function of repegging that Beanstalk could enforce or something like that. I mean, there's literally infinite ways to do it. So we should all give it some more thought as to what the most refined way to do this. And then obviously there's a macro level question as to how to integrate this with the silo and the stock gauge system, and what Beanstalk is ultimately going to optimize around, which is currently just the values of price and debt level, price and pod rate. But over time, it may make sense to have the system optimize around magnitude from peg, magnitude deviation of the pod rate from some sort of optimal, and then magnitude can be defined as like the magnitude in value, the time, the amount of time. There's a lot of different ways to quantify deviations from peg, and ultimately the field and the silo and all of their autonomous adjustments really should be integrated to some extent around the same goals, even if from an economics perspective they're designed totally independently, which probably does make the most sense to a large extent. The things that they are optimizing for definitely should be aligned.
Yeah, and I think you can, to an extent, say that just given that the field soil issuance is completely dependent, or not completely dependent, highly dependent on a lot of conditions given on what is the price of beans, is it above peg, below peg, and so on. Publius, you mentioned a few things, like the liquidity or where the price of bean is, there is no run, let's say, on Beanstalk, and that maybe because a lot of the liquidity, let's say, is locked. But even in the secondary, you don't really see a lot of unripe, being sold there. Isn't that an indication that it's not just because the liquidity is locked?
So haven't been following the secondary market at all, so we'll take your word for it. Did see that we had our first chop, really two chops, but you'd assume they're related. So first chop, which is pretty exciting, right? In general, it's probably not reasonable to expect that nobody chops from here back to a 0% chop rate, and therefore, particularly given the nature of the chop, where the sooner you chop, the more that the people that hold out get rewarded. It is pretty cool to see the first chop. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's by design.
Yeah, exactly.
The option was there, and it was accounted and designed for.
Yeah. So no real thoughts on the. I mean, just haven't been following too much on the unripe side, but at least from our perspective, the chopping is really a fascinating thing, because you'd expect the chop market to be in some sort of equilibrium with the secondary, right? Why would you chop when you could sell on the secondary market for higher? But I mean, to your point, maybe there's no liquidity on the secondary market, and maybe this is now a new phase in the Beanstalk bear market, if you will, where people are chopping instead of selling on the secondary market because it's sort of dried up. But I mean, with the chop rate at 995 or whatever it is, what do you know what unripe assets are going for? Could it really be half a cent?
No. There is definitely, like, even the asks right now. You can see the recent post. First of all, there aren't a lot of unripe on the market, and then the most recent post, I think the seller asked for like 12%, which is like relatively high since the protocol relaunched. or they're even asking for 15%. So not a lot of sellers, at least from what I'm observing. Okay, Publius, I wanted to go to another comment where we said, if the field keeps increasing the temperature, how long can it do that, for months or for years? Do you think it's appropriate for the DAO to just, pass a BIP and say, let's divide the temperature by 10, or just let's change the temperature at any arbitrary point?
Well, the DAO can do whatever it wants, but ultimately, much better to design an autonomous mechanism for the system to run by itself without needing manual intervention by the DAO.
Okay. All right. We have a few questions in the town hall chat. Maybe we can go through them. Bacchus is linking to a post in the ideas forum that's labeled Compost, and I believe it's written by Sync. I think this the discussion there is something that we addressed maybe in previous classes, but we can go over it quickly. Publius or Bacchus, maybe it changed, and you can also share with us its latest form. So the idea here is, burning pods for stock, Publius. I think what Sync is proposing in it is that there is some, a different kind of stock, like a preferred stock. I'm not sure how different that stock would be from like a normal stock, and then pod holders could burn it for stock.
So, in general, feel like very clearly simplicity is better, and one of the simple design principles of the silo, well, first off, of Beanstalk, is the silo and the field really are distinct, and except for the idea where you can trade deposits for pods, there really is a separation in their function within the system, and it is important that there is from a theoretical perspective, it's important to understand that maybe the better sentence is, it's important to understand that from a theoretical perspective, the silo and field are really separate, and their effects on Beanstalk are separate. And one of the other principles of the silo, or a principle of the silo, is that there is no stock without underlying BDV, or liquidity that has exposure to BDV. And the reason for that is to minimize the concept of permanent seigniorage, which in theory you could have like limited seigniorage, so people are now trading their pods for a new class of fungible debt or semi-fungible debt, like fertilizer, which is receiving a portion of mints in some other way. So it's not like you can't do it in a way where it's somewhat simple and there's just a fourth facility or a fourth way that mints are going. But in general, don't think that it makes sense to mix the field and the silo. And more than that, the field there's already liquidity in the field through the pod market, and don't think that it's on Beanstalk to provide additional liquidity for pods, particularly in the form of future bean seigniorage. So now you can pick and choose your bean seigniorage, and you can go from pods, you can transform your pods to something else. Just seems very complicated and unnecessary, and it's unclear how it would affect peg maintenance in any capacity. So see that Sync hopped up here, and curious for your thoughts on this, Sync. Maybe I'm misunderstanding the idea.
Yeah, I think there are a few messages, and it seems that the idea has changed to an extent. So Sync maybe can explain or ask a question to us.
Hey, sure. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. Yeah, so it was an interesting discussion. Originally, it was an idea of burning pods for preferred stock, and then through the course of the discussion in that thread that Bacchus linked to, Safi had a really good idea, and that's why we changed the thread title to Pods for Compost. So Compost, according to their, as far as I understand, and anybody in the audience, feel free to correct me, whoever has been following along with that thread. Compost would essentially be like I guess preferred debt, if you will. So you would take the pod line and essentially offer an opportunity to people in the pod line to burn their pods in exchange for compost, and the compost would be at the front of the line. Like it would be like a 50-50 split between the pod line and then the compost line. And then the compost, so it would create a 50-50 split within the field. So kind of like how we already have this 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 split between pods, stock, and Fert. You would be splitting the 1/3 of that corresponds to the pod line, right, as it exists right now, with the idea being that eventually, when the Fert is, when all the sprouts are paid off, hopefully, and the system reverts to the 50-50 split between the silo and the field, well, then this would create a essentially 25-50 split, if that makes sense. So there would be no blurred lines between the pod line and the silo as was originally envisioned. There would be no preferred stock here. It would just be you're burning your pods to get a much more reduced number of what we would call compost, and you would be paid off at the front of the line, essentially correspondent to pod holders in the pod line. So it doesn't change the fact that pods would be first in, first out, as we already have established. It would just allow creditors to renegotiate their debt, essentially. And in exchange for doing that and reducing the debt load of the protocol, it would get compost, and then the compost would be paid out from new bean mints, similar to the pod line.
Yeah. What is the benefit to Beanstalk?
So the benefit to Beanstalk is it would allow the creditors, pod holders, to renegotiate their debt downwards, kind of like the chop function that we have in the silo. This would.
But what's the benefit to Beanstalk?
It would reduce the pod rate, and it would reduce the pod line.
But to some extent, it actually wouldn't reduce the pod line, because if you're decreasing the amount of mints that go to the field or go to paying off the pod line, now the incentive to sow goes way down.
Well, a big hypothetical to this, and I think that's the one thing that if you check that thread, Publius, we don't have an answer to, is how would you determine the conversion of burning pods for compost? Because the idea would be that if you burn pods, you're going to get a lot less in compost.
I think there's a couple open-ended questions, but actually the point is that Beanstalk doesn't have to determine that. The market determines it at the time that the market sows, and the market also determines that on a continuous basis on the secondary market. So don't really feel like it makes sense in any capacity for Beanstalk to be serving this role. Now, it may make sense for there to be other markets, or like a compost protocol that's designed as a liquidity protocol for pods that function as a secondary, but it really should not affect the peg maintenance model or the minting schedule of beans. I mean, this type of manipulation of the pod line is exactly the type of thing that would destroy Beanstalk's credibility. Where now, why would anyone sow beans when the DAO is just going to go and radically change the parameters of the loans? The exploit was a one-time thing where it makes sense to moderately reduce or dilute the seigniorage schedule to pods, but it really was moderate in the grand scheme of things. But the idea of now creating separate classes and changing the seigniorage schedule, at least from our perspective, that would be a really horrible idea.
Yeah, just to be clear, as far as the discussion was concerned, this would have been totally opt-in from a pod holder perspective. So there would be nobody forcing.
No, I understand that, but the idea that you're corrupting, because as soon as anyone opts in, now you're disrupting the entire pod line. So if someone opts in, they're now getting priority over the people that were previously in front of them and longer. So you're actually corrupting the integrity of the pod line.
That's a fair point. If somebody does burn, however, it would move people up behind them, correct? So I
Yeah,
mean,
but
there's a lot to
that
consider
doesn't
here.
that's like the whole point of the pod FIFO structure, which is that you lock in your place in line. Now you're messing with that. This would just destroy the incentive structure in the field entirely.
Okay. Well, I would personally disagree with that, but the thread is
And
open
why
for
is
others.
that, right? So there's this FIFO system. The incentive is that you can price your return and your risk exactly at the time of the loan. We're saying, what do you think is the odds or the time or the expectation of when the bean supply will reach a certain amount? It's a very clean calculation. As soon as you add these other variables, other user behavior in the pod line, that makes the calculation way more sophisticated. And from our perspective, particularly given that this allows people to cut the line, this is just something again to start where we started this answer. There's real elegance and simplicity, and it's really unclear. We have to bifurcate benefit to people that are stuck in the pod line and benefit to Beanstalk, and those are totally different things. So if you're stuck in the pod line, from Beanstalk's perspective, Beanstalk doesn't give a shit. It gives zero shit. So the idea that now Beanstalk is going to disrupt its peg maintenance model because of people stuck in the pod line. In fact, this is exactly why pod holders don't have governance power. Because of course, this is what lenders would do. They're going to say, "Yeah, you have to restructure our debt, man," or DAO. Like this is exactly the way things work from an incentive perspective, and why the stockholders in the silo control the protocol and not the pod holders. Exactly why.
Yeah, I'm not going to dispute that. And at the end of the day, no proposal is going to pass unless stockholders agree with it, right? So, as a courtesy to Safi, who can't join this call and speak on their behalf, I'm just explaining the discussion in that thread. For everybody else, feel free to look at that thread if you want to see the course of that discussion.
Thank you, Senk. Publius, expanding maybe on this idea here, what are your thoughts if, in the future, the protocol pays off all of the fertilizer and then it continues, with an extended, let's say something before it goes to 50-50 and it does, a one-time thing with it. Do you think that you see any like value in the DAO thinking like that?
No.
Okay.
The goal here is to create the most simple, autonomous system possible. Not add complexity just for the sake of it.
And the way the code that's right now on chain is that as soon as fertilizer is paid off, it goes back to 50. So this is already designed.
Yeah, but don't think that's the point. Obviously, if there are better ideas for peg maintenance or how the system should work, they should be considered and probably implemented. If not, there'll probably be a fork that implements them. So it's really important that the DAO does consider the best ideas from an economics perspective. But by the same token, if the DAO goes the wrong way and implements crappy economic policy, it's highly likely that it kills Beanstalk, or if it doesn't kill Beanstalk very quickly, at the very least, it'll put Beanstalk in a worse position to compete with other similar versions of credit-based stablecoins that will likely spring up if Beanstalk continues to do well. So the idea is Beanstalk is not just the DAO is not just trying to figure out marginal improvements. There's a real competition in theory to figure out the best implementation and to get there sooner rather than later to really take advantage of the network effect that currently exists around Beans. So at the end of the day, these types of complexities and sophistications that don't add any value to Beanstalk make things much more hard to understand from a peg maintenance perspective at best, and really are going to take away from the focus around things that actually matter. I mean, these are the wrong things to be focused on. So, if anything, maybe to be a little bit more positive, feel like these are the types of cool economics problems that are ripe for innovation in the sense that FIFO debt models, those are new. And the way to create liquidity, particularly in a pooled fashion for pods, is also unclear. So the pod marketplace V2 does create a lot more options for liquidity. Don't think the UI is really at a place where it's able to take full advantage of that. But the concept is there needs to be more outside the box thinking about this. But so not meant to discourage the idea of compost or the idea of trying to create new ways to create liquidity for pod holders, but and certainly trying to discourage manipulation of the core of the peg maintenance model, and particularly doing so with minimal obvious economic gain to Beanstalk.
Okay, understood. And Bacchus, I see you had a comment. I don't know if you want an answer. Is that a question, or are you content on the answer? Let me know. Okay, Publius, one last maybe comment or observation, and this is just for thought. So the price of Fert right now, I understand. I think there were some sold or being sold, let's say, at a rate that's better than what you would have bought at 500%. Let's say when it was offered by the DAO or by the protocol on the barn raise. And I wanted to comment here about if there is any meaning to any of this. So the 500% was an arbitrary number DAO chose, and there are a lot of things that that played a role as well in it, which is the timeline. I remember during the barn raise there were talks about what if it happened before the collapse of Luna, and then maybe another thing to think of is that what if the barn raise happened now after the collapse of FTX. Do you think when it comes to something like this that it was sold arbitrarily, and then it's dependent on many other things, that the selling price of it, let's say, or the market price of it, is an indicator?
An indicator of what?
No, of the performance of the overall protocol, let's say.
And what is it selling for? I'm not up to speed.
I'm not sure. I think if I remember, it was something maybe like you would have gotten what you have got for 9 cents instead, like 90 cents instead of $1, something like that.
And how much have you been paid back if you have fertilizer? Do you know how many beans?
No, so they're selling the sprouts. So think of it like when we were buying it at the barn raise, $1 you'd get 6 sprouts. I think.
I don't think you can sell sprouts. You can sell fertilizer. Yeah,
so I believe they're selling like fertilizer but they're pricing it by the number of sprouts that are in it.
So the 500% fertilizer has 6 sprouts, and what's that selling for?
I'll try to look for it.
Sorry, just not following the secondary markets these days.
Yeah, so I think someone is selling. Publius, maybe you are right. So I'm not so sure if on details here, but I think if my understanding correctly is that if you buy it now, you'd buy it better or at cheaper than at 500% when it was in the barn raise.
Yeah, it can't be that it's 90 cents per sprout, because then you'd make a huge return. Right, you make a 5x, now you sell for 90% discount, you make like a 500 and something % return.
Yeah, we can maybe revisit this question when I have a better understanding.
No worries. So, yeah, we can move on.
Yeah. Okay. We have a small surprise by Beanthoven and Bella Beantalk, as we close this class. But before we do that, I'll give it a minute or two, see if any other folks have questions. We can take them before having them on stage. I can maybe invite you guys from now as well.
Are we live?
Yes, you are.
Oh shit. Okay, people can hear us. All right. Well, so first and foremost, do people want to migrate over to a video streaming area?
Yes.
Because we have something very special.
Yes, I
Well,
don't.
then
Let's.
I'll sign off. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and talk next Tuesday.
Okay,
Happy
we'll
holidays, Publius.
we'll move to the barnyard chat. Publius, maybe you can come to the first.
Oh, I'll come.
see the
I'm coming to
performance.
hang out, but I'm just I'll
Yes. All right, we'll move to the barnyard chat where we have our DAO meetings. Let's go there. See you guys. Are you gonna screen share?
I'm trying to turn my camera on, but
Oh, we're trying to turn the camera on. Real
Okay.
quick.
All right.
but it says I can't stream into this channel. Fortunately.
Oh, it says we can't stream into this channel.
CB, can you help us with that? I think you should be able to.
Is it a permissions thing?
I don't think so, but I'll check. But I don't think so.
Well, we can always go with the plan B if this doesn't work out. But there's something.
Okay, let's give it a minute. CB is looking into it. We'll give it a minute. If he can fix it, great. Otherwise, go with the plan B. Can you try now, Beantalk?
I'm muted. Yeah, it still doesn't seem possible.
Yeah, still says that we don't have permission. Yeah, let's go with plan B. So there was going to be a face reveal, and yeah, we have this whole setup. But tell you what, we'll take a picture and we'll
maybe leave
share
and
that
come
in the
back.
chat.
Just leave and come back and see if that works.
Let me try that.
Negative, not working, unfortunately.
Oh no.
Well, you know what? You can still hear us. We can still perform a little bit for you guys, and we'll send you a picture, a little Christmas picture. We'll figure this out at some point. Want to be able to look you in the eyes at some point. All right. Well, let's get the show on the road. Beantalk, you ready? Reverb. There we go. All right. Here we go. This is a little something called Beanbowl. He roams the lonely prairies late at night, a more impressive sight you've never seen. With lightning in his eyes, you can hear his thundering cries as he calls for Bean. He moves the T-Wub using just his size. His wallet weighs at least a dozen whales. He walks with quiet pride, but the scars along his hide prove the hero of 1,000 epic tales. Is it a bull? Is it a bean? It's Beanbowl! Is it a bull? Or is it a bean? It's Beanbowl! of every hacker matador. He never met a cloud he couldn't gore. And if you came to fudge, you'll be face down in the mud before you know. He lives off 50 pounds of beans a day. Won't find him eating greens or grains or hay. His breath is sweet as sin, only when he breaks his wind. They can smell it way on down in Mexico. Is it a bull? Is it a bean? It's Bean Bull. Is it a bull? Or is it a bean? It's Bean Bull. And the protocol he loves the best is branded there upon his chest. He keeps it neatly shaped for all to see. He's 10'10" and green as green like Shrek, except he's jacked and lean. Thank God he's on our team. Thank Bean for Bean Bull. Thank Bean for Bean Bull. Thank Bean for Bean Bull. Thank you.
This sounds really, really good, given that you're doing it live. Much clearer and better than earlier
We've
performances.
got the whole band here. 20 people. They each charge, so I hope the coffers are deep.
Well, try your camera. CV says that it might work now. Show us the band.
Okay. Let's see what happens here.
All right, I'm gonna disconnect one more time and jump on. No, unfortunately.
No, doesn't look like it.
Okay, we continue then.
Yeah. We'll
Oh,
wait. Is it wait? Is it working? Hang on.
Nope.
Nope, not working. All right. We'll figure it out someday. But for now, I'm actually going to take off my face because I don't know if you can tell, but it's making my voice all muffled. This face reveal was a big deal. All right, let's move on here.
Which one do you want to do? You want to do other?
Let's do the devil. Well, the devil god in crypto, biggest degen of them all. He liked to watch the prices rise, but he loved to make them fall. He was feeling all high and mighty. He was doing his devilish deeds. He was pulling rugs and spreading fun when he came upon beans. Said the bean, so you're the devil, huh? Who's been causing so much grief? I've half a mind to tan your hide, and I think I've got the means. The devil laughed a demon laugh. You must be telling tales. How could a being get the best of me when everyone else has failed? I'll tell you what, let's make a deal. You take all I can give, and I'll leave this land forever, and it's just the way it is. The bean said, now, beans are sturdy folk, and you don't scare me none. So write up the deal and tell me where to sign. Let's get it done. It's time to scrub the blockchain clean. You really need a hero, and the name is Bean. For the holders and the crypto chats. Gonna kick the devil right in the nets. The devil grinned and said, my bean, you don't know what you've done. I'll send a crypto winter, and with that, I think I've won. The bean just shrugged. If that's the best you've gotten, you've been outclassed. We ain't even growing slowly now, just a little bit less fast. The devil growled, I'm not done yet, I'll troll and fud and rage. I'll make the world so misinformed, they'll avoid you like the plague. A smile played across beanie lips, guess you haven't met my friends. For Q&As with scared smooth brains, they're the best that's ever been. The devil now looked a little scared, but he had one trick more. You may have beat me so far, but let's even up the score. I'll steal all your liquidity, I'll drink your milkshake dry. You've never met a degen more despicable than I. Better watch out for that old fast loan. The devil is a hacker with a heart of stone. He's gonna steal your beans, he's gonna starve you out. So what do you think about that now? The bean took just a moment's pause and said, well, it's not ideal. There's nothing in the silo now and nothing in the field. But if you think I'm down and out, then boy, you don't know jack. The farm is fine, and look, beans are already growing back. The devil knew then that he was beat. He gave a piteous cry. Don't make me leave without fear and greed. I'll shrivel up and die. The bean said, now a deal's a deal, and you can yell until you're blue. But show your sorry face again, and I'll give the devil his due.
Hey, Beanthoven. Guys, the live performances make me think that at a later stage you might re-release all of these things just acoustic or with different
the acoustic version. Yeah, well, wait till you see the music videos with the reindeer and the dancing unicorns and the choreography.
Okay.
Synchronized swimming.
Do you want to try one last time? CB says that he might have fixed it now.
Oh, one last time? Okay, just 1 second. Oh, I think that's it. All right.
Okay, the face reveal.
I gotta put my face on it too. All right, I'm gonna do this.
Okay, this is as dramatic as it can be here, this reveal. I may have been lying a little bit about the unicorns.
All right, here we go. Sure we can see.
Hey. Yo, where did you make the mask?
You mean my face?
Nice.
This is
Look.
Yeah, it's like an elephant man sort of thing, You you make do with what you have.
A true bean.
Love it.
This is good. Farmer Dan, we gotta get some of these and send them out.
Oh, we can set up like a vanity photo shoot if you want. All right, should we do one more?
Yes.
Let's do one more here. You can see more than I can.
All right. Which one do you want to do?
Let's do Futter. Let's do Futter. Right. Never before performed live. Well, it's looking like we stalled out here at 60 million votes. Not sure where 40 million more could be. Like this whole idea was assembled by IKEA. It's a house of cards, a double rug Ponzi. I read on crypto Twitter, Beans Illuminati run. The barmaids failed will never be made whole. Thought these magic beans will pay my rent. An APY 0.1% ain't bad if you invest 1 billion full. Bean Futter. Only woman ever loved him was his mother. Gonna panic every pay, gonna ship post till he dies. After every visit, the Discord chat and all 3 googly eyes.
I know we can but you're so patient.
Looking like we stalled out here at 60 million votes. Not sure where 40 million more could be. It's like this whole idea was assembled by IKEA. It's a house of cards, a double rug Ponzi. The devils were buying hamburgers and draining all our funds. The barmaids failed will never be made whole. Thought these magic beans would pay my rent. An APY 0.1% ain't bad if you invest 1 billion bowl. Bean Futter. Only woman ever loved him was his mother. Gonna threaten gifts with failure like he's challenging the gods. But he secretly has 0 stock, just a couple hundred pods. Now,
I've been putting every bit of my self-worth into this project, and frankly, if the devs don't make a rain beans immediately, I'm gonna complain loudly to the 26 people and 234 bots that follow me on Twitter. Beanfutter, lives off Mountain Dew coated in peanut butter. Yeah, he's done with Bean forever, he'll be leaving any day. Just as soon as he's done posting, got a few more little things he's gotta say.
Thank you guys for the performance
Thanks.
and the entertainment.
Thanks
And
for the stage.
Through to your PFPs.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah, happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Take care.
Thank you once again, Beanthoven and Bella Beantalk, and thank you all for joining us today. And we'll see you next week.